Good morning, everyone. Happy to see everyone here bright and early in New York this morning. I'm excited to be here with Cheryl. So Cheryl's in from the West Coast, so a long trip to get here, but very excited to meet with you. And I'm going to share a little bit about your background. So Cheryl is the Chief Marketing Officer of Verizon Value, which we're going to hear more about Verizon Value and what they're up to today. As CMO, Cheryl leads the holistic marketing strategy across their portfolio. You oversee brand identity, awareness, demand gen, creative, media investment, CRM, and the list goes on. So we'll dive into more of that. And in the past, you've also served in very senior leadership marketing roles across TikTok, YouTube, Mattel, Taco Bell, and initiatives. So quite the career path, which I'm excited for you to share with us kind of what brought you to where you are today. And I'm Katie McAdams. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of Basis Technologies. And Basis has been improving the lives of people working in digital advertising for 22 years now, making us one of the most long-standing companies in ad tech. We have around 1,000 employees across North and South America, and we are a DSP that does more. So we also ingest search, social, direct data to provide a comprehensive look into all campaigns and not just programmatic, because we believe that it's important to drive operational efficiencies, not just media efficiencies with our platform. So you can learn more about Basis at basis.com, and that is my plug for the day. So you will not hear me plug Basis again. But let's get to why we're here today. So we're here to talk with you, Cheryl. Let's start with just explain what Verizon Value is. It's a newer division of the company. What is Verizon Value? What are you focused on? And what segment of the market are you serving?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everybody. So Verizon Value, most of you probably have not heard of that yet. We have just started this group as of January of this year. Verizon Value will not be, in the near term public facing. It's more of an internal group name that helps understand and identify the segments and the brands that we oversee. So how it all came together is Verizon, everybody knows Verizon, probably, and hopefully a lot of you might have it. But Verizon's been around for quite some time and done an incredible job at growing a brand and a company. Verizon started Visible a few years ago, and you may have heard of Visible, but Visible is an idea around how do we get wireless service to people who maybe don't want to go inside to retail stores. They don't need to call a 1-800 number. They're very, digital first, and they can get online and, sign up for their phone service in a quick and easy way. So Visible was started by Verizon a few years ago, and I started working at Visible. Fast forward, Verizon acquired a company called TracFone, based in Miami. And a lot of us may have heard of TracFone before. I had certainly. What I didn't know was that TracFone is actually the parent company of a ton of other phone brands. Straight Talk, Total, Simple, Net10, Walmart Family Mobile, and the list sort of goes on and on and on, and TracFone. And the key thing that differentiates, I'd say, Value is that our customer segment is a bit different than what we call Verizon Postpaid. And then our distribution channels are different. So where a lot of the regular, I shouldn't say regular, but postpaid carriers focus on their owned stores and their 1-800 numbers and their .com for their distribution, the Value team has different distribution channels. So we partner with Walmart. You can only get Straight Talk at Walmart. You can only get Walmart Family Mobile at Walmart. Target, Best Buy, Rite Aid, CVS, Kroger. That's where our distribution is. And then we focus on customers who need, different choices and different options. Probably most of you in here are probably what we call postpaid customers. You are signed up for a wireless company, you get a bill, you pay it when you get it, and that's it. Our prepaid customers is which the Value Group handles. Our prepaid customers, I liken it to almost like Netflix, right? You sign up for Netflix, it's debited once a month. You either pay your bill or Netflix sends you an email, we've shut off your account until you pay your bill. So with our customers, what's great for them is we have all these different distribution channels. We even sell in like bodegas here in New York City, but people can pay any way they want. So we pay through PayPal, You can pay in change if you wanted to. You can pay in cash. You can go online. So there's just a lot more choice, and there's no contracts, no commitments, no credit checks. And so it gives people a lot more choice and just options to do what they need to do to fit their lives. So that is what Verizon Value is. There's a lot of brands, as I mentioned it, within it. And so we created a separate but internal organization to focus on it.
So I like how you're associating value with choice, right?
Right.
And you and I chatted a little bit last week around how are you defining value? What does that mean? So, in your words, what does that mean? What does that mean to be the value
Yeah.
division of Verizon?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. It's changed, I mean, a lot for all of us, right? Recently with things like inflation, COVID, everything. But, value means different things to different people. I use this analogy. Someone might find great value in the Four Seasons Wailea and have no problem, doing that because it's great value to them. Whereas somebody else needs value based on maybe the day of the month that they pay their bill, or the way they pay, or where they go by. Or, you know what, I don't use a lot of data. I just need really talk and text, and maybe a little bit of data to send some photos to my grandkids. So what Verizon Value does is develops different phone plans, different channels of distribution, different ways to pay, so that, no matter what type of value you're seeking, and quite frankly, who you are, there's a brand for you. It's interesting. A couple of our brands have very high household incomes and very high credit scores. And you might not think that when I come up here and talk about Verizon Value available at Walmart, but they actually, high incomes, high credit scores, but to them, they're finding value in our plans. But also, one of our brands, for example, folks that are new to country, it's like the #1 brand that they'll pick, and they might have their own device, but they need a SIM card to activate their device. So to them, that's value because it's at their local corner store.
Right. So it's almost really for each brand, defining value is going to be different depending upon
Yes.
what segment of the market you're serving. So you talked a little bit about Verizon Value. It's an internal brand. I heard you say that. How, knowing that right now your plan, I think, is not to take Verizon Value externally,
Right.
public on the consumer side, how do you prioritize your resources, your focus across
Right.
all the different brands that you're responsible for?
Yeah, it's a, sometimes, to be candid, sometimes you feel like you're a firefighter and like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? What's going on there? I think all of us probably feel like a lot of pressure, a lot of demands, everywhere. But we really look to sort of our primary brands, or our largest brands, are Straight Talk, which is Walmart distribution, Visible, which is only online distribution, Total by Verizon, which we just recently rebranded, the Total with the by Verizon. And we're going to have local retail stores, and you'll be able to buy online as well and in retail. So I'd say those are our 3 primary ones that we're focused on. However, the minute that comes out of my mouth, I think about well, don't forget TracFone. That's super important. Verizon Prepaid, super important. And I'm forgetting one, but there's several others that are very important. I'll remember it in a minute.
Hence the broad scope of all the brands you need to
Exactly,
focus on.
exactly. It's a lot.
Yeah,
it's a lot. But we have the team set up to be able to support different brands, and we'll look at sort of like the channel distribution. And brands that are primarily, for example, distributed through Walmart, different mindset, different customer, different timelines than brands that might have like Total with a standalone store, or Visible certainly with online only. So we'll set the teams up a little bit differently to support those needs.
Got it. Okay. So that's helpful. I think just get a lay of the land of
Yeah.
Verizon Value, all the things you're focused on. I want to shift to kind of back up a little bit and talk about your career path and how you landed in the seat you're in today, because you came from a media background. You started on the agency side, and then you've had a really impressive career trajectory that took you through a lot of different brands. And how did you make that transition from being focused on the media side and on the agency side to jumping over into brand and then ultimately moving into the CMO seat?
Yeah, I will tell you, it's been a fun journey, unexpected probably as well. Someone asked me recently, they said, well, what's your next move, or what's your next 2 moves? Do you want to be this? And I was like, you know what? I actually want to kick ass here right now and do really great, drive the business and do really well. And I think what I will say is, like, when I was in media, and I love it. I love media. I wanted to be a media person, but I think what happened, and I think it's an interesting thing to think about, because there's probably a good handful of media folks in here, maybe creative folks or whoever, but you sort of go into this one path, but depending on the environments you're working in, you're exposed to all parts of marketing, and you do learn. You may not do the job every day, but you do learn. And so I think as I went through my career, and I got an opportunity to run integrated marketing, for example. And so I learned a lot more about that. It was one of those things of, like, opportunities came and I sort of just said yes. And I will tell you, probably talking to my 15 years ago self, I would never have expected that I was here. I didn't have this planned. But what I found is, as I went through my career, you do know more than you think you know. And I started, sitting at the table, having the conversations, and sort of being like, I know this. Yeah, we should do that. And then and sort of, everybody's journey is different, but you gain more confidence and you start speaking up a little bit more. And hey, you know what? If we just did this over here, maybe that would work. And then it works. And you sort of build that credibility and go up. And so I think it's, I don't want to say have a plan, because I didn't. I'm happy where I'm at, but I think it's that meeting opportunity and saying yes to new things, taking risks. Also, speaking up and asking questions and building those advocates behind the scene. The person who gave me my first, like, head of marketing role was someone I'd worked with before, and he knew me. Then we worked together at another company. And an opportunity came up, and he was like, I want you to run this. And I'm like, I don't know this part. And I remember him telling me, he's like, it's fine. He goes, it's like wine. He goes, you just learn a few words and you say them. And, and he was like, I'll teach you. And so, but I think, not being scared and taking that risk or leap. And I think the biggest thing is, too, more than you know. And so if you're interested and it's an opportunity, I'd say, go for it.
Yeah. I love that advice, because I think there's a lot of talk now about creating more boundaries for yourself at work, right? Making time for life outside of work. But then on the flip side of that, I think it's such great advice for people earlier in your career to just say yes to that project. It might be, a short period of time where there's a little extra work, or maybe you don't know what you're doing yet, but you never know what doors that could open up. So I love that advice. Thinking about just kind of the expectations of a CMO today, and knowing that you've run marketing, at other companies in the past, and how are you seeing the expectations of a CMO change? Do you feel like they're different than they were 5 years ago?
Oh gosh, maybe. I think they're different. I don't know 5 years ago, but I would say one thing that I sort of watched as I was coming up, and learned from those before me by being observant. But I think something that I try to live by is the business results are the most important thing. And going and doing the fun sponsorship or the creative TV advertising or all that stuff that marketing gets to do, that's important also, but not if it's not driving the results. And so I think one thing that I try to do as a CMO is, it sounds basic, but, like, you've got to look at the sales every day. And you've got to be thinking ahead of what's going to happen, what are we going to need to do, how are we going to need to pull different levers to help potentially pivot and drive those sales. Building a really strong partnership with finance. And I remember something early on in my career as a media person and team, people would say, like, well, we've got this budget, we better spend it. We better spend it. Let's find ways to spend it. And you know what? Sometimes it might not be the right business decision, and if you own stock in your company, shareholder decision to just spend the money. Sometimes you might say, you know what? Hey, finance, we're going to give the money back to the bottom line because that's the better decision right now. I don't know that it will yield as much ROI over here. And so I think, having a marketing mindset, but also just that finance and business mindset helps. I think with your relationships internally, I think it helps, building credibility for yourself and your team. And ultimately, right, the goal is, what's my next goal? The goal is for our business to be great. And so that's what I'm thinking about, and just try to stay focused there.
I love that, and focusing on the business results, because sometimes activity, right? We're generating a lot of activity, a lot of noise, but if that's not translating into business results, it ultimately, it doesn't matter. Yeah. So just pivoting to think about a little about more of your team, right? And the tools that your team is using. What do you feel what are the key tools or the critical tools that you're focused on bringing on for your team, maybe this year or even looking into next year?
Oh gosh. I'll tell you something, and I don't know that it's a tool necessarily, but something I'm thinking about is, sort of this evolution that is happening of like social to thinking about more broadly to brand engagement, and what, tools, research, information, partnerships, thinking are we going to need to have to be able to influence and help, inform and give people information about our value brands, but in I'd say a more broad and different way. I think, we've all been through, social when it started, right? And then, the companies got really smart and turned down the dial so nobody saw your content unless you paid. Good for them. They made a lot of money. But then, okay, let's use influencers. But, I'm sure everybody's been through that journey as well of like, are those influencers authentic? Do they make sense? Especially with someone like, phone service, how do you show an influencer with phone service? It's, right? Like it's a little
creative there.
Yeah, you do creative, and we have a wonderfully creative team that does great work there. But, we're thinking about, just the full funnel journey of brand engagement and what that means, with the media world we're all working in. Everything is changing so much. It's still kind of staying the same, and I'm seeing some cycles happen. I'm like, I remember this 18 years ago. But anyway,
we're an example of one of those things that you're seeing resurface, and you're like, whoa, where did this come from?
Podcast is radio. Like I think of that all the time, and the way people talk about their favorite podcast people. K-Rock, Kevin and Bean, right? Like, oh my God, did you hear what Kevin and Bean said today? And now it's like, oh my gosh, did you hear what, Scott and Kara said today or something? So that's a funny one for me of like, oh, I remember this. And, and it's a different way of delivery, a different system. It's not all at the same time for everybody, but it is interesting with
what's old is new again.
Yeah.
It's like the 90s fashion. I'm like, oh
Same
gosh,
right? Yeah.
I can't do it again.
Yeah.
Speaking, and we've got 5 minutes left. So actually, I have one more question for you, and then I'm going to open it up. Thinking about 2024, what are you most excited about?
Oh gosh. What am I most excited about? I am excited. This year, I would say, was a year of transition for us. We were in a way bringing together 3 different companies, the TracFone company, the Visible Group, and the Verizon Prepaid Group together, blending teams, building structure, hiring. We're hiring a lot right now, so if anybody's looking, let us know. But we're hiring. And so it's been a big year of transition. And quite frankly, how are we going to talk about these brands? Which brands are going to be the ones that we'll be talking about a little bit more? Which ones will we only talk about in certain channels? And so I think I'm really excited for next year to really, I'll say, like, execute on the plan and have the right org, the right team, and right strategies in place. This category is going through a lot of change right now, and it's a lot of competition. It's a street fight in many ways, and I'm good for that.
Yeah.
So
I love
like that.
It sounds like you're ready to hit the ground running, which is awesome. I'm going to open it up. So we've got 5 minutes left, and we've got a question right there.
Hi, Cheryl.
Hi.
Lovely to meet you. Thank you for everything you've shared. I actually work at Paramount, and Verizon is my bread and butter, and I live and breathe your brands. I ask you a question about the value brands, and how are you, everything you just shared about the value proposition for customers, is some of those things I actually wasn't aware about, some of the flexibility, and thinking about the macro consumer brands, how are you guys looking to differentiate that messaging and that complexity for the consumer who may not realize they just see the big V, right? How do you tackle that?
It's been interesting. I will tell you, one of the reasons we're in sort of this separate team is because we just have to think a little bit differently and operate a little bit differently. Simple things, I'll go to video, but where we show logos of like, and I can't remember for sure which one of our brands, but even you can pay through the Cash App, right? Showing those logos in our advertising means something to people who pay that way. Talking about the retailers of where we can, be purchased at means something. And so I think what we're looking to do is show the flexibility, the ease. I think those are our big differentiators. Some people aren't looking for flexibility and ease. They sign up like I did 20 years ago. And, you stay with the same company and you just pay the bill, and it's, that's value for you. But other people who are looking for that, showing them their choices of where they can buy, how they can pay, the types of different phone plans that we have, I think is the way we're going to be coming out more in our advertising.
Awesome. We've got time for one more question. Let's do here in the front row. I think you had your hand up first.
Hi, I'm Courtney from John Boy Media. The evolution of your career is really inspiring. What do you think is the biggest difference being a marketing leader at a media company versus a telecommunications company?
Oh, interesting. I will tell you, when I was at TikTok, it was interesting for me, right? Because, it was very interesting. But the interesting piece there that clicked for me was being at TikTok and being in consumer marketing there. A lot of times, even though, we might be doing brand campaigns, we might, when I first started there, the goal was to age up, right? Ironic. Who wants to age up their brand? But we did. Age up the app. So we were doing campaigns focused on 25 and up. But we got pulled into, a lot of times, meetings with CMOs at other companies. Tell us about your audience. Tell us about how you market to them. Teach us this. Is there something cool we can do? So there was this little bit of I'm a consumer marketer, but I'm also helping the sales team, right? With selling advertising. And TikTok obviously has a wonderful B2B team, and they do a great job, but sometimes we get pulled in. So I think that's the big one, right? Whereas at a company like Mattel or Taco Bell or Verizon, we're certainly focused on, primarily consumer-focused branding. So that's the big one.
Awesome. Well, let's give a round of applause to Cheryl. Thank you so much for sharing with us today and for being here.